So just yesterday, Japan announced that it's going to restrict exports of high-tech materials to South Korea. And such a move is seen as a retaliatory measure against Seoul for its top court's rulings on Tokyo's use of Koreans as forced labor during World War II. For more on this, we have our Foreign Affairs Ministry correspondent Lee Ji-won joining us in the studio today. Hi, Ji-won.
Hi, Ji-yoon.
All right, so first and foremost, to walk us through the measures that were taken by Japan on Monday.
Yes, Japan's trade ministry said yesterday that starting from Thursday, bulk licenses to export high-tech materials used in smartphones and chips to South Korea will no longer be valid. Now, this means exporters will have to apply for individual export licenses every time, making it harder for South Korea to buy those products. Now, the restricted items are fluorine polyimide, which is used as a liquid crystal display component in TVs and smartphones, and resistant etching gas used in making semiconductors. Now, the ministry also said it'll gather public comments on getting South Korea taken off the list of so-called white countries recognized for having minimum restrictions on trade. Japan accounts for about 90% of the global production of fluorinated polyimide and resist, while taking up 70% of the world's etching gas production. So the measure is likely to deal a significant blow to South Korea's tech giants, including Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix.
All right, so, why are they doing this? What was the reaction from the South Korean government?
Well, Japan's trade ministry cited, quote, the significantly undermined trust between the two sides as the reason for its restriction. And soon after the news broke out, South Korean officials from related ministries and departments held a meeting and said the government will take necessary countermeasures, including possibly taking this to the WTO. Let's have a listen.
The Korean government held a ministers' meeting Monday morning to examine the situation and our responses. Going forward, the government will take the necessary countermeasures. One measure being considered is filing a complaint with the World Trade Organization.
But Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said in an interview with Yomiuri Shimbun published earlier on Tuesday that the move does not violate WTO regulations and it has nothing to do with free trade, hinting the move is a result of the South Korean Supreme Court's forced labor ruling. Now, Tokyo has repeatedly threatened South Korea that it would take economic measures if Seoul did not resolve the forced labor ruling in a satisfactory way.
Now, since late last year, this forced labor ruling has been the bone of contention between the two sides. So give us a recap on this.
Sure, Jian. Since October 2018, South Korea's Supreme Court ordered two Japanese companies, Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corporation and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, to compensate the now elderly Koreans they forced into work for little or no pay during Japan's colonial rule of Korea. Now, the compensation for each victim in each case is different, but they are mostly around $80,000 to $90,000 per plaintiff. Now, in its ruling, the court said the 1965 agreement that normalized Seoul-Tokyo ties does not take away individual rights to reparations. In 1965, Japan paid South Korea $500 million in an effort to normalize diplomatic relations with Seoul. But because of this, Japan has been arguing the issue was resolved and the South Korean government has to intervene against the order or else it's violating international norms. However, Seoul says it respects the independence of the country's courts and it's working to come up with an appropriate response.
All right. Now, we are hearing that after a month-long review, the South Korean government recently went to Tokyo with a proposal. Tell us more about that.
Yes, Ji-yoon, last month, Seoul proposed that the sued Japanese firms Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corporation and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries voluntarily contribute to compensate victims with the help of several unspecified Korean firms. Now, the total compensation amount they need is at least $1.15 million. But the Japanese officials rejected the idea right off the bat through various briefings and interviews, saying it does not resolve how South Korea violated the international norm. Instead, Tokyo has been requesting for an arbitration by a third country, which Seoul says it is reviewing.
All right, so while all this is going on, we're also hearing that the victims and their lawyers are urging the Japanese firms to take some action.
Yes, as the firms are not responding even after numerous warnings and letters, the victims and their lawyers pressed the court to freeze the Japanese firm's assets within South Korea. The victims of Sumitomo Metal Corporation had the court freeze $344,000 worth of the firm's stocks within the country in January and $691,000 worth of Mitsubishi's assets in March. Now, Mitsubishi was asked to respond by July 15 before the court sells off the assets, and Sumitomo Metal Corporation by mid-August.
So at this point, we kind of want to know, do experts have any suggestions as to how to resolve such a delicate situation?
Well, some experts said it is an option to take this matter to a third country for arbitration, but some of the experts I spoke to had some different solutions.
The South Korean government's proposal was not discussed with the victims nor any of the Korean companies that would participate. So even if Japan accepts this, it would be a problem. It means South Korea would need more approval to see it as a solution.
South Korea has to let the world know that Japan said in 1991 that the 1965 agreement does not terminate the individual's rights to reparation. It has to show there's no problem with the court's ruling and that Tokyo should not take these diplomatic and economic retaliatory measures.
So it really is a predicament, but what's most important, according to the experts, is that any solution has to reflect what the victims want.
Most definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you, Ji.